1 in 10 Americans are now on antidepressants. 1 in 4 women in their 40s and 50s are on antidepressants. The rate of antidepressant use has increased 400% over the last 2 decades. Blue Monday... No, not that one. Blue Monday, the 3rd week of January, is the most depressing day of the year for people living in the Northern Hemisphere. The weather sucks, you're not getting enough sunlight, causing seasonal affective disorder. You're in the most debt, you're more likely to be sick. Christmas is just a memory, and your New Year's resolutions are already failing. So you're more prone to depression than at any other time of the year. But wait. Those factors have always been in play. None of this explains why depression has become so commonplace in modern society. Well, I'll tell you why. We're bathed in a culture that glorifies and fetishizes depression. It's now a form of virtue signaling to constantly drone on about how depressed you are. You see it all over YouTube, these snivelling hug and confess videos made by privileged millennial brats who haven't had a proper day of hardship in their entire lives. They think they're being edgy, when in fact they're engaging in just another form of basic bitchery.
You're a basic bitch.
Social media has created a generation of young people suffering from narcissistic personality disorder. They try to one-up each other for depression brownie points, with endless blubberfests about their poor privileged lives. Meanwhile, people living in African mud huts literally give zero fucks. Maladjustment is now trendy. And not in a kind of Morrissey, emo, grunge-esque, chic kind of way.
And heaven knows I'm miserable now.
We've always had that. I'm talking about this ridiculous idea that we've been forced to swallow, that constantly admitting weakness is a strength. It isn't. Strength of mind is strength. Being constantly brushed off course by the slightest breeze and then having a whining fit about it isn't. They've transformed being anemic, weak-minded, and easily upset into a positive personality trait. This idea that we should all have permanent emotional incontinence. This idea that if we're not constantly sharing the latest chapter in our contrived mental breakdown for all the world to see, that we're somehow cold or inhuman. That's total BS.
Bullshit.
Strength of character used to be about the ability to deal with negative stuff without just falling to pieces at the first sign of distress. Now look what they've turned us into. Simpering pussies wallowing in our own misfortune whenever every tiny thing doesn't go our way. Over-eager to share every minor anxiety in a giant self-pitying Facebook post. Oh, but there shouldn't be a stigma around depression anymore. That's mean. Yes, there should. Just as there should be a stigma around smoking and obesity. Depression has become the new fat pride movement. Our culture is telling young people that depression is completely normal and should be embraced. You saw the media pushing this same narrative again after the death of Carrie Fisher. Depression is not normal, but allowing yourself to be indoctrinated with this idea that it is the primary reason why you can't beat it. This coerced mental fragility also renders you completely helpless when it comes to dealing with actual tragedy or hardships. They've turned us into complete pussies, because pussies are easier to push around and manipulate.
You're a big fat pussy.
And if you want to blame someone for this, you can trace it back to idiotic French philosophers like Michel Foucault. They pushed this postmodern nihilistic bullshit that insanity was sanity, and that rampant hedonism was the only way to achieve fulfillment and happiness. Logically, the depression epidemic makes no sense. By every single objective factor, it's never been a better time to be a human being living in the West. Even amongst the poorest, our basic needs are met and exceeded. And depression was barely even a thing. It wasn't even talked about 50 or 60 years ago. So why is everyone so depressed now when we've got it so much easier? It's because you've been completely misled about what depression actually is. Depression is nothing more than dissatisfaction with life. It's temporary unhappiness. But the dominant culture in the pharmaceutical industry figured out that it could control people and make tons of money by treating depression as a pathological disease. So now depression is not unhappiness, but a medical condition, which it's the responsibility of the doctor to alleviate by medical means. And they're only too happy to, often being paid to do so, under the insane justification that depression is a chemical imbalance, which it isn't. We've been indoctrinated that everybody has a right to happiness. No, you don't. Happiness is earned by the way you live your life. If you make bad life choices, you become dissatisfied with life. You become depressed, and it's your fault. People make dreadful lifestyle decisions. They're lazy. They self-sabotage. And then they wonder why they still get depressed. You're not entitled to be happy.
You are entitled to nothing.
Your mood cannot be independent of the way you live your life. You can't eliminate dissatisfaction with your life by taking pills. The only cure is to change the way you live your life, to make better decisions, to create value, excitement, and authenticity in your life. Work on projects, start businesses, read, absorb worthwhile information, create something. Listen, I'm not trying to go all Tony Robbins on you. I don't have all the answers, but you need to reach for those higher levels in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Because society and the culture that we're subjected to does everything in its power to distract you from achieving self-actualization. You're not going to achieve self-actualization by taking pills or having endless conversations with therapists, most of whom don't give a damn about you anyway. Reject this barbarous, vulgar culture that pretends to offer you everything, yet only ever leaves you empty and isolated. Reject this idea that depression is a fait accompli, that you just have to accept and tolerate. Reject the normalization, glorification, and fetishization of mental illness.